Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. We got NFL Divisional Round matchups, 4 games on the docket here. Last slate over 2 games for the season. I feel like the season just started. So, here we are, Divisional Round, some really good games, a lot of upsets already in the playoffs. Dallas is out, Philadelphia is out. The Dolphins are out. I'm just kidding. Joined as always by my buddy Keith Eister, Eys819. Keith, football, very interesting week. No Rams, no Cowboys, no Tyreek Hill. And here we are. And I think both of us kind of thought Cleveland were going to be Houston, and CJ Stroud was the man last weekend. What a weekend.
Yeah, it was a wild card weekend for sure. Crazy stuff. Shout out to the Packers and the Bucks for pulling off massive upsets. I definitely did not expect those. And I was with you on the Browns. Thought they were just a lot better team. Their defense in particular, and CJ Stroud just absolutely shredded that defense. So good for him. One of the best rookie quarterback seasons we've ever seen, I believe. You have to be really excited about Houston's prospects moving forward. Tough spot for them this week. Maybe we're all going to sleep on them again. I don't know. Outdoors in Baltimore is a little bit different than at home against Cleveland. Both good defenses, but a little bit more cozy environment there at home in the Dome. Tough spot for him in Baltimore, but he looked awesome. Jordan Love has looked awesome second half of the season. So looks like the Packers really have something there. And Baker Mayfield played lights out as well. So lots of surprising performances. It was a fun weekend.
Yeah, heading into the divisional round here, we have, 4 games with all totals over 43. Some potential cold weather in Baltimore and Buffalo, some rain moving through early in San Francisco, and then nice and toasty Detroit game inside the Dome.
You know it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that one. Don't you worry. Let's get into it, have some fun, and talk some football. We got Houston at Baltimore, 43.5 total. Baltimore, 9.5 point favorite in this one. Let's talk Houston here first. Always starting with the visiting team here on the Morning Grind. Again, CJ Stroud just kind of did his thing. We saw him. He looked really good. And that was a really tough defensive matchup. Threw 3 touchdowns, threw for 274 yards, and didn't need the volume. They got up in that game. He played really well. Nico Collins had a really good game. Dalton Schultz had a really good game. What are we looking at here on the Houston side?
Yeah, he was incredible. He missed Nico Collins on a wide open touchdown as well. Nico was way behind the defense, should have been an easy touchdown, and he missed him on that one. One of his only bad throws of the day, but could have had an even bigger day. That being said, there are cheaper quarterbacks that I like more. We'll definitely talk about those guys. This Baltimore defense is no joke, and I kind of alluded to it at the top. Going outdoors in the cold at Baltimore is a little different than being at home. So I'm probably not going to play CJ Stroud. I will have Nico Collins just because the role for him has been incredible. Noah Brown is now definitely out, played a little bit hobbled last week. This role for Nico Collins should be incredible. Dalton Schultz is definitely in play for me as well. I don't know that I want to play CJ Stroud, who kind of falls at a weird pricing point. You've got Purdy and Goff right below him. You've got deeper dart throws on Love and Mayfield that are even cheaper. If I'm spending down into the 6K range, I don't see myself getting CJ Stroud on this list of quarterback names in a tough matchup against Baltimore. Not to say that he can't be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, but I think his paths are a lot more difficult than they were even last week when he was home in the Dome.
Yeah, lit up a good defense last week. We very rarely, when we're doing this football show, do we have projected ownership, but he projects as the lowest owned quarterback of the 8 potential quarterbacks on this slate. So in tournaments, you kind of think the game script is going to be good for him because Baltimore should get up in this game. Baltimore is a much better team than Houston. They should get up in this game. CJ Stroud potentially playing from behind. Well, if they're playing from ahead, that means CJ Stroud has probably done his thing too. So I could see the angle of taking some shots here on CJ Stroud, and it like the pairing him is super easy. It's Nico Collins, it's Dalton Schultz. Depending on like if Mechie and Woods end up playing, Hutchinson might be another like value play on this slate. You know, if those guys are out, because like you said, Noah Brown out. But I think Schultz, even though he had one catch last week, it was a really good catch, 37-yard touchdown. So his upside is still there. Brevin Jordan had a long touchdown as well. I think he had like a 75-yard touchdown or something. So the upside, I still think Nico Collins is the upside play here. We'll see what happens with Robert Woods and Mechie, whether or not they play or not. But it could potentially open up some value for like Sims or Hutchinson if those guys are out. Go into the Baltimore side. Spend up wise, Lamar is going to rival taking shots on him or Josh Allen. I mean, those are your two spend up options, 1A, 1B. I don't think that there's a wrong answer. You know, when you're looking at these two guys, I think Josh Allen has a higher ceiling overall, but Lamar is a guy that can rush for 3 touchdowns and throw for 2 touchdowns. You know, we saw him week 17 against my Dolphins just absolutely shred the Fins. Love Lamar. Mark Andrews, full practice on Wednesday. He's going to be good to go here. And we know that Lamar is going to find Mark Andrews. Obviously, we have Kittle, we have Laporta, we have Kelsey, we have Kincaid. But I think Mark Andrews is the top tight end play on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are going to be a little bit reluctant to jump on the Mark Andrews thing. He's been out for several weeks. I'm just looking at ownership now. Like 15.5%, roughly what we have projected below Kittle and Kelsey. I think that's probably right. He comes in a little bit under those guys. He definitely has as much ceiling as them if he's going to play his full complement of snaps. It definitely hurts the upside of guys like Zay Flowers for me. So, like, I want to play Lamar. Finding his stacking partners is a little bit more difficult now that we're introducing Mark Andrews into the equation here. Likely is overpriced. He's kind of been getting there on long touchdowns anyway. Like, his volume hasn't been huge. He just keeps scoring touchdowns from like 25, 30 yards out. So Likely's overpriced at 4,700. Even if you think Andrews isn't going to play a full complement of snaps, Likely's workload is certainly going to be reduced at least some. So he's overpriced. Kind of the same for Zay Flowers. Like, that really limits Flowers' touchdown upside, in my opinion. Like, if there's any point that Mark Andrews is going to be on the field, it's going to be down in the red zone near the end zone. Like, we know that Lamar loves to target Andrews in the end zone, and Zay Flowers was scoring a bunch of touchdowns with Andrews out of the lineup. So I don't think I can pay for Zay Flowers in this spot. I'm with you. It's Andrews. If I'm stacking with Lamar, it's Andrews as my first look. And there's definitely some risk that he only plays like 50% of the snaps, but they're going to be like high value snaps. They're going to be in the red zone. They're going to be on third down. It's going to be that type of thing. When Andrews is on the field, I'm confident he's going to be targeted. We know he's Lamar's favorite target. If I'm looking to double stack Lamar, and I don't think you need to do, but if I am looking to do it, I probably go cheap instead of going someone like Zay Flowers. I'd looked at like Odell Beckham is where I would go, or maybe Aguilar, just hoping for that long touchdown. But I'm with you. It's Andrews is the most comfortable click here as far as pass catchers go. The running back situation, like Gus Edwards basically needs to score 2 touchdowns, and he's certainly capable of that. Houston run defense has been a bit susceptible, but I'm still worried about Edwards' upside, and it's completely tied to touchdown equity, which is not generally the type of running back that I like to play. I think it's a fine spot for him. They did cut Melvin Gordon, assuming that Dalvin Cook probably gets the elevation for this game. He's 4K. We have no idea what his role is going to be, but I mean, Gus is still going to be the guy. So if I was clicking a running back here, it would be Gus, but just doesn't feel that comfortable.
The running back is Lamar Jackson. I mean,
yeah, right.
He's the goal line back, and it's a playoff game. I mean, this is going to be Lamar doing as much as he can. I mean, just think about Josh Allen last week. That's what you're going to get kind of out of Lamar Jackson here in this week. So, big thing, like, for Andrews, like, he started practicing last week when they were off. So, like, I wouldn't be shocked if he plays like 80+% of the snaps this week from everything I've read on Mark Andrews. Like no setbacks, full practice now. I mean, he should be good to go. Give me like 75% of the snaps and I'd be super happy at 5K. I'm a little bit more interested in Zay Flowers than you, but it's more of like double stacks. I think I could double stack Zay and Andrews, and if Lamar has like that big touchdown game not running, I think that's where it's going to go to. So might like double stack Andrews and Flowers on non-Lamar teams and play a lot of Andrews and Lamar together as my main stack here. Moving on, we got Green Bay at San Francisco, 50.5 total, highest total on the slate. San Francisco, 9.5-point favorites. Green Bay, they did their thing. They went in to Dallas and beat Dallas. Jordan Love, again, he's playing phenomenal football here down the stretch, like you mentioned. Kudos to how Green Bay has handled their quarterbacks over the last 25, 30 years.
Cannot do it better.
Yeah, just absolutely fantastic. AJ Dillon still did not practice on Wednesday. I wouldn't be shocked if he misses again. I assume that like we'll see a very high output as far as being on the field, snap share here for Aaron Jones if Dillon ends up sitting in this game. Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, Watson, pick your poison. Musgrave, I think he would be the tight end play if you're touching it. Good game script. San Francisco should get up in this game. What do we like here for Green Bay?
Yeah, San Francisco should be playing from ahead this game. I don't think they're going to have quite the collapse that Dallas did. So I want to target the passing game here. I probably clicked Jordan Love a couple of times. The biggest hesitation that I have is who are the pass catchers to target here? Like you just rattled off a ton of names. Bo Melton needs to be thrown into that mix as well. Like with Watson active, he barely played. Dobbs was on the field the most and had the highest target share. Jaden Reed was the guy that kind of got squeezed. Wicks still had a role, which we kind of talked about how good he had been. And even with Watson being activated, like figured he would still see the field a little bit. And then in addition to that, Bo Melton still saw the field a little bit. So there's legitimately 5 wide receivers here. There's 2 tight ends here who both split time last week as well. We talked about Musgrave not necessarily being 100%. He still managed to catch a touchdown and saw 3 targets, but Kraft was out there almost as much. He had 3 targets as well. So we're talking about 7 pass catchers here, plus Aaron Jones. I have no idea who to stack Jordan Love with, and that's the biggest concern that I have. I feel the best about Dobbs from a playing time standpoint. Like Watson still has that monster big play ability. Like he barely saw the field last week, but I have to assume he gets a little bit more involved this week. I don't know what to think of the Jaden Reed stuff. Like he'd been their best receiver all season and he just kind of disappeared last week. So Derek in chat just play Love naked. And I'm honestly considering that. Like give me Love to save. And it's not even a huge savings off of Purdy, which is the other thing. Like I was going to say play Love and just stack up 49ers on the other side of them, but Purdy's only 300 more than Love. So while that's viable and it gets you different, it's just as easy to click Purdy in that type of lineup as well. So I don't know. Ultimately, I'm going to have Packers exposure. I'm going to have to sort through kind of the reports and things like that about how healthy is Christian Watson, what happened to Jaden Reed, that type of thing before I decide like who I feel good about clicking on here. But I definitely want some exposure here because I think it's going to be a really pass-heavy game script from him.
Yeah, we only saw Reed play 26 of the 55 or 56 snaps. I just read it before we got going, but and then like Watson was on the field for 40%. I think Dobbs, he's the healthiest, so he's probably my favorite target here, but I will have exposure to Reed and Watson because I do think like those guys both have big upside. I just don't like Wicks. He's just a guy that finds the end zone. So you know, I would definitely make a group of these 4 guys. I don't think I'd include Melton in my mix here with Watson being back and assuming Reed plays more this week just in general, both of those guys. So I'd make a group of those 4 for my stacks with Love and probably max it at about 2 because they're just so cheap. So if you get the right 2, but I don't hate the Jordan Love naked. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper for a 4-game slate because, I mean, honestly, I'd rather play Mayfield and Goff over Love at the same price point in that game that we're going to talk about next. So going to the other side of this one, though, I mean, Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, the running back like equity on this slate is really high because there's just not a lot of great running backs. Like there's running backs that are awesome if you look at like a season performance, but like you look at the matchups, we got a lot of good run defenses on this slate. Green Bay has been shredded by the run down the stretch. Christian McCaffrey could have a massive game here. 8,800 on DraftKings. What are we doing with the 49ers?
Yeah, McCaffrey is $1,000 too cheap. If he was 9,800, we'd at least have to think about it. I mean, there's certainly game theory involved here on short slates. There's only 4 games, but McCaffrey is way too cheap for his role in this spot against Green Bay. Like, I don't know. I'm going to have a hard time not trying to get overweight the field on Christian McCaffrey. And looking at early ownership numbers, it's only 34%. I think that climbs a lot by the time we get to Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up around 50% by the time we kick off on Saturday. If he's not 50%, I'll be double the field on it, just because I think he's an awesome play, and I think he's way underpriced. I wanted to have a ton of exposure to this San Francisco offense. They're the one driving the total here. This offense, when all of McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle have been healthy, has just been absolutely unstoppable. They're going. I don't think they're going to have the same trouble that Dallas did moving the ball against this Green Bay defense. It's McCaffrey first, but I want plenty of exposure to Purdy and pass catchers as well. I think that the opportunity for Kittle to separate at the tight end position is huge, and there's plenty of upside tight ends on this slate. Assuming that Andrews is good to go, you have him, and then you have Kelsey, who is probably going to see a ton of targets again. I still think that Kittle has as much upside as anybody in this matchup. Picking between Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle is always difficult, and I probably want McCaffrey in those lineups as well. I think Purdy, McCaffrey, and Kittle will be my highest exposure 49er stack, but I'll certainly have Debo and Ayuk as well.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, like on my main build, first guy in. Like I'm going to build around that guy. And as far as the wide receivers, I like Ayuk more than Debo, but I like Ayuk and Debo more than I like Kittle on this slate. So Kittle, when everybody healthy, just seems like the 4th or 5th option. And like, he's a great 4th option. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know. Mark Andrews is a number 1 option. Travis Kelce is a number 1 option. Tight ends are so tightly priced this week. Like, it's really hard for me to kind of just put Kittle up there with like Kelce, Laporta, and Andrews. And maybe that's what everybody does, and Kittle kind of goes overlooked here. But like early week projected ownership does not say that at all. Like Kittle's projected to be the highest owned tight end on the slate. So if that's going to be the case, and I get it, they have a 30 implied team total, highest implied team total. They get one of the better matchups, and I hear all that. I will say though, like in large field tournaments, I think the Packers defense is somewhat interesting here. They get a ton of sacks. They get a ton of interceptions. They have, touchdown upside for sure, but they sack the quarterback so much. Like if you look at the last 5 weeks of the season, 4 of the last 5 weeks, they had at least 4 sacks. They got after the quarterback. They gave Dak a headache last week. So, I mean, I like cheap defenses in general. You're going to build that lineup and you're like, all right, well, I can't fit in Baltimore's defense. I can't fit in the 49ers defense. Well, I'm going to go down and I'm going to look at the Packers and the Bucks and the Chiefs and the Bills, and I'm going to play these cheap defenses because it's defense, and it's so impossible to predict a pick 6. So,
yeah, Houston's defense had 2 touchdowns last week. Who saw that coming? Like
nobody.
Yeah,
nada. I didn't.
Especially now when you think the Browns are going to win the game. Like
I had some Houston defense last week, but I didn't think they were going to score 2 touchdowns. I mean, right. I spread out my ownership as much as I possibly could at defense, and I do that almost every week. I think defense is one of the most random things, and I would love to see defense get turned into a flex spot. But anyway, All right. I feel like this is the game of the weekend for me. Tampa Bay at Detroit, 48.5 total. Detroit's a 6.5 point favorite in this one. When we're looking at pass funnels, we don't get more pass funnel happy here than two of the biggest pass funnels in the NFL. We got Detroit, who ranks number 1 in run DVOA, and we have Tampa Bay, who ranks 8th in DVOA. They are both in the bottom 4 rushing yards allowed per game this season, but they're both in the top 4 as far as passing yards allowed per game. This is a DFS dream. This is a spot we absolutely have to love. And Baker Mayfield, I know people are going to be scared, but they let him throw 36 times against Philly in a 32-9 game. They let him keep airing it out. Threw a touchdown late to Chris Godwin. This is the playoffs. There's no letting off the gas. Talk to me here about your thoughts on Tampa Bay. Hope we lost Keith. Yeah, he's gone. Hopefully his internet connects back to him here. But as far as Tampa, for me, this is going to be one of the offenses that I know I'm going to be overweight on. This game I'm going to be overweight on in general. I like Mike Evans. I like Chris Godwin. I like Rashard White. I like Baker Mayfield. And the great thing about Tampa in general here is you know where the production is going. You know the production is going Evans, White, Godwin. Like, those are the 3 guys that get the production most weeks. In large field tournaments, I think we could take some shots on Trey Palmer. They try to get him involved in the deep passing game. We've seen him score a 50-yard touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games in these meaningful games here down the stretch. Detroit's going to put up points on this Tampa defense. So I think that we're going to see Tampa, they're going to have to score to keep up in this game. So really like Godwin and Evans. Take some shots on Palmer. I know David Moore had a long, 40-yard touchdown. I'm not going to chase that touchdown here. I think it's Evans, Godwin, a little bit of Palmer, definitely like White, and I think Baker very, very much in play here at $6K. One of the cheaper quarterback options that we have just in general on this one. Going to the Detroit side of this one, another pass funnel defense. Like I said, this is Tampa defense has been great against the run all season. Absolutely love this spot for Jared Goff at home. We know his home road splits. We don't have to talk about it. He's been way better at home just in general throughout his career and this season. Like this matchup a lot going up against Tampa. Should be a high-scoring game. These 2 teams played in Week 6, and Goff threw for 350 yards and 2 passing touchdowns in that one. So my love for Detroit is huge. I mean, I think St. Brown is one of the top wide receivers on the entire slate. I think we're going to be talking about him going up against the San Francisco duo, and then we'll be talking about Diggs and Rice in the game after this. But I think St. Brown's role and just target share is through the roof, so hard not to love St. Brown. Really like Sam Laporta. Talked about Josh Reynolds last week on the podcast with Raymond banged up. Raymond's questionable, still did not practice on Wednesday. If Raymond ends up sitting, I think you could go back to the well on Josh Reynolds. He had 7 targets against the Rams last week, 80 yards with 5 catches in that one. He scores a touchdown, and he absolutely crushes. So really like getting some exposure to Reynolds. Still like Jameson Williams, but the role seems a lot better. Goff seems to trust Josh Reynolds a lot more in this offense. So I prefer Josh Reynolds over Williams, which is nice because, projected ownership right now kind of has these guys pretty neck and neck, 13 and 15% there. So as far as the running backs are concerned for Detroit, getting exposure to Gibbs and Montgomery is always nice, but way more interested in Gibbs than Montgomery because I think Gibbs has more upside in the passing game. Let's bring Keith back in. His internet is working and he's good to go. I've already gone through everything I like here, so feel free to talk Tampa Bay and then go straight into Detroit, and the listeners will know how you feel compared to how I feel here.
All right, so I'm flying blind. I know that you are in love with this game though as well. We kind of spoiled it at the top of the show. This is DFS gold here. The pass funnel defense just set up for this to be an extremely fast-paced game with both teams just having massive volume through the air. So Tampa Bay side, tough spot for Rachaad White. I think he has the second best role among running backs in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey with the first. White is second, but this is a spot where I'm staying away from Rachaad White because the Detroit run defense has actually been outstanding. Second half of the season, you've been able to beat them through the pass at will, though. So give me all the Mike Evans. That's like one of my favorite wide receivers on the entire slate. Baker Mayfield at only 6K. Like, yes, please. I expect Detroit to play from ahead in this game. We saw Mayfield drop back a ton in that last game, 36 pass attempts. I think Tampa Bay is going to have to throw the ball if they want to move it. And it's very clearly Mike Evans as the highest upside option for me. He had a couple of drops last week, or he would have had a little bit better game. I think we see a rebound from Evans here, like massive upside from him. Godwin, like, it's going to depend on ownership for me. Like, he's a volume guy for sure. The touchdown equity has been scarce this year, picking up the last couple of weeks, but I think that I go cheap with my second guy. Like, I definitely want to double stack Baker, and Evans is a guy I'm playing for upside, but I want to look at these 3K guys as well. Trey Palmer, David Moore, and Kate Otten, I think, are all in play. All three of them had roles last week. David Moore kind of came out of nowhere. Trey Palmer's had a role pretty much all season. So I definitely think that you can look back in either their directions. And then Kate Otten had, what do you have? 11 targets last week. Like, and he did have a couple of drops as well, or he would have had over 100 yards himself. I'm just targeting this Tampa Bay pass game heavily. I feel like Detroit plays with the lead here. Tampa Bay has to throw it a ton. So I want all the exposure to those guys. Evans is going to be one of my highest owned wide receivers. I'm taking shots on Trey Palmer, David Moore, and Kate Otten as well. I'll have some Godwin, but I probably end up underweight on him. On the Detroit side, like, Detroit's my favorite offense of the week. In the dome against a pass funnel defense of Tampa Bay, like, the running backs are a split 50-50 anyway. So, like, getting the running back right is already difficult. Add in that Tampa Bay is really good against the run, and why wouldn't Detroit just throw the ball like crazy in this spot? Amon-Ra St. Brown is my favorite wide receiver option on the entire slate. Evans would be second in that ranking, but Amon-Ra is the best wide receiver on the slate. The Laporta thing is tough. Like, he was clearly not 100%. Probably don't go back to him. Love him if he's healthy, but I just don't think he's quite healthy yet. That opens up room for Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams for me. Kind of the same things with the Bucks is, like, Laporta is probably the number 2 option, but just saving the money down to Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams is the way I'm going to play this. I think they both have upside. We've seen Reynolds be involved down near the end zone. Jameson Williams has the big playability. I know he wasn't on the field a ton last week, but I'm just going to keep playing that guy for the upside. Extremely talented prospect who, it just takes one long pass at 3,600 for him to be relevant. Detroit's going to be my highest exposed team on the slate for sure.
Just a quick note too, in week 6 when these two teams played, Jared Goff chucked it and Gibbs missed that game. It was one of the games that Gibbs missed this season when he was hurt. So David Montgomery did absolutely nothing in that game, for what it's worth, but they chucked it, and I think they're going to chuck it again. I mean, like I said, I think St. Brown is the top wide receiver play on the entire slate. I mean, him and Christian McCaffrey, like, if you can figure out how to make the salary work, like, those are the two guys that you're just plugging in, playing as much as you can, I think, on this slate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the cheap wide receivers from this game are the way to do that. I talked about 4 of them: Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, Trey Palmer, and David Moore. I think all 4 of those guys are in play.
I think Reynolds has the highest upside of the 4. I mean, and, like, ceiling wise, Williams has that, like, ability to break a big play. And I mean, he's scored a few touchdowns this season. And, like, if he can have that big play and the touchdown on, like, one game, like, his ceiling is massive. On the Tampa side, like I said, like, Palmer has scored over a 50-yard touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games. So, like, his upside has been shown. Like, they want to get him involved in a deep part of the game. That's how you beat Detroit. So, just a game that I love. Glad to hear your thoughts mirrored a lot of what I said. So there we go. Kansas City at Buffalo is where we finish out the divisional round. It's going to be cold, but I mean, both of these teams are used to playing in the cold. 45.5 total. Buffalo 2.5-point favorite. Starting here with Kansas City on the road. I mean, we just can't overlook what Rashee Rice has done down the stretch. Like, this guy is 6,800, and he's producing like an $8,500 wide receiver. He has scored at least 20 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. He got the trust of this offense with Reed and Mahomes, and he's just taken advantage of it. I mean, Travis Kelce had a couple drops last week, but again, playoff Travis Kelce came out 10 targets, 7 catches, 70 yards. He had 2 big drops that could have been even more big plays. Let's talk Kansas City, but I think it's really simple. It's Mahomes, it's Pacheco, it's Rice, and it's Kelce.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to deviate from those 4 guys. Like, this is not a game I don't think I'm like Tampa Bay, Detroit. I'm game stacking. I want as many players from that game as I can fit in. Yeah. This game, I think you're just targeting the ceiling game. It's Rashee Rice, it's Travis Kelce as far as guys who can just absolutely separate. Rice could go for 150 and 2 touchdowns. It's kind of the same thing from Travis Kelce. And if he does that at the tight end position, that's a slam dunk. It's like that's how I'm playing the Chiefs this week. It's really going to be Rice and Kelce. I know Mahomes is like cheap for what we would consider him, but he has not had a massive ceiling this year at all. Like, I don't know if he has more than like 2 30-point games all season. I'm just scrolling through. He had 37 against the Chargers. I think he has 30 DraftKings points game all season long. Like, he just has not had that massive ceiling. And it's because he doesn't have the playmakers that he's had in the past. Now you're putting him outdoors in the cold against Buffalo. Like, even if they're trailing in this game and he's throwing it 40 times, like, unless Rice and Kelce both catch 2 touchdowns, like, I don't know that I need to play Patrick Mahomes is kind of the point. Just give me the wide receiver or the tight end in this case, like Rice or Kelce. That's how I'm playing this game. I think Pacheco's a fine play. I'm just concerned like the game script might get away from him a little bit as well. So I'll have some Pacheco, but like not going to be a primary target like Rice and Kelce will be.
Yeah, and like you play those guys without Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So I mean it's kind of nice, but honestly, like what's kind of weird about Kansas City is they've only scored over 30 like team points like 3 times this year.
The offense hasn't been good. Their defense is good.
That's the thing, though. The offense hasn't had to be good because like the defense has just been so good. Buffalo's going to put up some points on this team. Like there's no question in my mind that this is going to be a good competitive game, but it was 17-20 when these two teams played in week 14 in a very meaningful game for both teams. Again, not the same, when you're thinking like playoff football. It's Pacheco just has such a high role in this offense, and like we're looking at a very thin running back slate, but it's Rice and it's Kelce. I don't trust anybody else to be out there getting upside, getting a ceiling. Like, do they throw a deep ball to MVS? Maybe, but he'll probably drop it. So why do I have to play him? Buffalo. We'll start here with Josh Allen. Obviously, him and Lamar just top end plays. Every time you think this guy is going to get tackled, he doesn't. He runs. You talked about his rushing prop last week. Kudos to you on that. He had a 52-yarder touchdown to just knock that.
Play.
Yeah, just knock it right out of the park. Done.
Love it.
We should mention that like the Bills cut Fournette. It's going to be James Cook. He's not going to come off the field. He's going to be on the field as much as possible. Where you beat Kansas City is through the run. I think it's really interesting. We saw Diggs get targets again last week, but again, he just hasn't had that ceiling game. Shakir was involved with Davis out. He obviously is a great value play if Davis ends up missing this game. Let's talk Buffalo. Cold game, but I mean, we know the upside is here.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the way I want to play this game is almost with Josh Allen at quarterback and Chiefs skill position players. Like, like I'd rather use Josh Allen than Patrick Mahomes, but I don't feel good about any of Allen's pass catchers. Like Diggs is overpriced for what he's done this season. Like, give me Nico Collins over Stephon Diggs all day. Give me Rashee Rice over Stephon Diggs all day. Like, they're in the same price tier, and I feel so much better about the volume and the upside from those other two guys. Diggs is great, don't get me wrong, but like Kansas City's defense is absolutely legit. I believe that they're going to contain Stephon Diggs in this game, and I'm going to be under the field on Diggs. I think I'm going to look back to the tight ends. Both of them caught touchdowns last week. Knox is still going to have a role. We've talked about that multiple times. Like in the red zone, Josh Allen is looking for Dawson Knox. Kincaid has more volume. I think they're still both playable. Knox at $3K, Kincaid at $4,800. I'm fine with both of those prices. And then depending on if Gabe Davis misses this game, Shakir at $3,800 is going to be another guy that's pretty easy to click on. Only 3 targets. One of them luckily went for a touchdown, so he kind of bailed us out last week. But I'm going to go right back to him. Like, I think a little bit of an anomaly that he only saw the 3 targets. I don't feel as comfortable with like a Sherfield or a Hardy or anybody like that. So Shakir, and again, like Allen's so expensive. If you go Allen Diggs, you're so vested. Like you just need Diggs to go nuts. I feel like I can get the upside game from Allen, and then if he throws 1 touchdown to either of the tight ends or even one to Shakir, exactly kind of the situation that happened last week. I'm just playing it back for that type of situation again.
Easily one of those games where you could go Allen, Shakir, Kincaid, Rice, and feel like you're getting a lot of production from both sides of this one. Like, doesn't have a huge total. Both of these defenses are solid. It's not like these are bad defenses. I mean, they're 7th and 12th in DVOA overall. There's not a weak point. I mean, the weakest point is Kansas City's rush defense. Again, I think James Cook is someone that might go overlooked this week. He had 25 fantasy points when these two teams met earlier this season. Like, he had a really good pass catching game. He had, I think, 83 receiving yards in that one. So James Cook, don't overlook James Cook this week. It's a really good spot for him. With Fournette gone, I mean, like, Ty Johnson's going to get a little bit of work, but I mean, the guy is going to be James Cook. He's going to play 80+% of the snaps in this one. And it's just a good spot overall for him.
Good call. Yep.
All right. Morning grind game. 10 questions to change your life. Quarterback for 300+ passing yards. What do you got for us this week?
Give me Jared Goff in the dome. Just love this spot for them. Pass funnel defense against Tampa Bay.
I like it. I don't want to say Purdy because I feel like that's chalky. Give me Baker. I'm going to stick to this game. I think they're going to have to beat him through the air if they're going to beat him. Low-owned running back for a touchdown. Let's throw out low-owned. No McCaffrey. Give me a guy that's going to score a touchdown this week.
Okay. The guy I had written down, you just talked up. So I'm gonna see if I can find a pivot here. I mean, I'm not gonna have a ton of this guy necessarily, but I do fully believe in his goal line role. Gus Edwards, like if there's any running back that's gonna score 2 touchdowns, I'd put him as high on that list as any name that's out there. Even like he's up there with McCaffrey as guys likely to score 2 touchdowns. They love giving it to him inside the 5.
I thought you were gonna take James Cook.
Yeah, I was going to. I pivoted for you because you were the one talking him up. I am totally with you on the James Cook stuff.
Yeah. James Cook was who I had written down. I do like your thoughts on Edwards though. Like he might get 12 carries, but run 2 of those in for touchdowns. Exactly. I mean, he's done that so many times this year, and like running back is very weak outside of Christian McCaffrey. Like that's why Christian McCaffrey is like just such a plug and play for me this week. I'll find value elsewhere. I want as much Christian McCaffrey this week as I possibly can get.
If ownership holds where we have him and like under 40%, like I'm probably just going to lock him. Like there's no reason. Like he's way underpriced.
Yep. All right. Give me a quarterback wide receiver stack for a touchdown.
Give me Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans. You're going to see a theme throughout these answers. A lot of them are going to contain this the Tampa Bay Detroit game.
I'm going to go Mahomes to Rice. Just love the role that we have for Rice down the stretch.
He's been so good.
consistent too. Like the targets are consistent. Like he's legitly kind of overtaken Travis Kelce as the number one wide receiver in this offense. And I mean, his upside just phenomenal. So give me Mahomes and Rice. Give me a wide receiver for 8+ targets here.
Kind of a cheat code on this one, but Amon-Ra St. Brown just has one of the absolute best roles in the NFL. Two teams that are going to pass a ton. So going right back to Detroit, Tampa Bay. Give me Amon-Ra.
Yeah, obviously I like that one a lot. I think he's the top guy here. I'm going to go Nico Collins. They're going to be trailing. They should be trailing in this game. And if they're not, Nico is probably still going to get there. Only 7 targets last week, but I mean, again, like they beat up on the Browns. It wasn't a close game. The defense, Houston's defense of all things last week showed up. Tight end for a touchdown.
There's some upside at tight end this week, but I like a cheap guy, Dawson Knox. Like that red zone role is real. At that price, 1 touchdown might be enough here on this little 4-game slate.
Gotta go Mark Andrews this week. Absolutely love Mark Andrews. Hopefully they don't activate him until like Friday, because I would love to have that IR name like tag next to his name as long as possible. And I don't think they have to activate him until Friday. So just leave it there. Just keep that IR next to his name for the people that are building early in the week and not making a ton of adjustments. Defense, 10+ points. Tough week for defenses. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it's real tough. And for that reason, I'm probably just going straight to the top. Give me Baltimore against Houston. Stroud's been amazing, so it's a little bit scary, but this Baltimore defense is legit. He's not in the dome anymore. I know he just went nuts on a really good defense last week, but I think he has a little bit of a tougher time this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go Kansas City. I just like the upside for Kansas City's defense, and they're cheap. So, again, I love cheap defenses. We really have just seen this defense kind of dominate. Like, they made Miami look silly last week. I watched even on Peacock. All right, let's go against the spread or money line. What do you got for us on the betting front this week?
Yeah, nothing really like super jumped out at me.
That's how I feel.
Most of these are about where I would put them. The Chiefs as underdogs is a little bit crazy, I think. And it's not like they're super underdogs. They're plus 125 on the money line. I think that's my lean as far as a best bet right now. But again, like nothing that really jumped out to me.
Yeah, I didn't write anything down. There's just nothing jumping off. Didn't bet anything yet. If I was going to bet anything, I would probably bet like the Houston plus 9.5 line, just because I like Baltimore. Don't get me wrong, but I think Houston could potentially keep close, but I don't think there's enough edge on that 9.5 line to bet it. So I didn't touch anything for against the spread or money line this week. Any over under bets that you like?
There is one of these out here.
Yeah, we're betting the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, you know it.
Oh, yeah.
Tampa Bay, Detroit, over 48.5.
Yep, same here. That's the one that I wrote down. I already bet this one and feel somewhat good about getting it early because I think it's just going to keep moving. Like we saw, I bet Baker Mayfield's pass prop yesterday or day before yesterday at 240.5, and I think it's at like 257 now. It has climbed so incredibly fast. But speaking of that, what do you got for us on the player prop front this week?
Yeah, I mean we've been saying it's the best game, so I'm just going to keep targeting players from this game. I've got Amon-Ra over 89.5 receiving yards. I think both teams are just going to keep throwing a ton.
You hope so, right?
Yeah, I mean if they're smart, and I think they both are. Like I think
both
coaches
are great. Yeah,
they kind of showed it. We've seen this game before, and that's exactly what we saw in the game. Is both teams just threw it a ton.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I don't know if I'd have to look, but I don't think I bet it. I'm probably going to bet it when we get done here. But I'm with you on St. Brown. I think there's a lot of stuff to look at in the player prop market. There's been some stuff that has been Bet up already. So like you have to be somewhat careful on the lines that you're looking at just in general this week, because lines are moving so incredibly fast. Like I said, Baker Mayfield's line, but I like Jared Goff we're kind of double teaming this one, but I like Jared Goff over 274.5 passing yards here. This is one, again, we're both on the same page when it comes to this game. How can you not trust the coach here? Campbell has been aggressive and he's attacked where you have to attack. And I mean, like I said earlier, he threw for 350 the first time these two teams met, and he threw 44 times. So, and I think that game was in Tampa. So he's at home. Got to love Jared Goff at home. Any pick 'em plays? Let's make our 2-pick play here. You got yours right last week. I failed us. I had St. Brown over or more than 7.5 receptions. He ended up with 7. So you had the Josh Allen more than 37.5 rushing yards. What do you like this week on the player prop front or the pick 'em plays?
I think if you want to include those last two we just threw out there, this one highly correlates as well. I've got Mike Evans here on the receiving yards. I've got him more than 69.5 receiving yards. He had 2 bad drops last week, or he would have had a much better game. 7 targets. I mean, he has the most upside among this Tampa Bay receiving core. We've talked about how we think this game is extremely pass heavy. So I like Mike Evans on the other side of Goff and Amon-Ra. Give me Evans more than 69.5.
Yeah, I like it. I am going to go to the fantasy score pick 'em here. This is one thing that I do like that Prize Picks and Underdog does, is the fantasy score pick 'em. I'm going to go more than the 22 projection for Lamar Jackson this week. I think he's going to be using his legs. I think he's going to be throwing a lot as well. So more than 22 here on the fantasy score for Lamar. We'll pair that with Mike Evans more than receiving, and that's our 2-pick play here. And I'm going to make it. We need one more, Keith, because 4. I hate doing the 4 on.
Yeah.
4 is never
do the
good.
5 and you get the flex just in case.
Yeah. So we gotta let's give one more here for the people. Let's get one more going here.
All right, you love Andrews. Does he have anything up yet? I imagine his numbers.
Nothing up yet.
Damn. Yeah, that would have correlated nicely with your Lamar pick.
They've raised Baker to 254 as well.
Man, just keeps climbing.
It just, his projection has gone through. What's his fantasy score? Let's see. Baker's fantasy score is 17. Do we like that?
Yeah, I mean, 2 touchdowns and he gets there, right?
Like so we're correlating, right? We have St. Brown with Goff. Let's do Evans, and let's do fantasy score from Mayfield. Kind of like a little. I mean, if we might do a little single game parlay and match this one, why not? So we have turned our morning grind pick 'em play into a 5-pick play. We have Lamar more than 22 fantasy score, St. Brown more than 91.5 receiving, Evans more than 69.5, and Goff more than 275.5, and Baker Mayfield more than 17 fantasy score. Again, I think like if you are in a state where you can bet, I would definitely prefer getting the St. Brown line in the sports books. It's 4 yards less, and I mean that's definitely where I'm at with that one. But Keith, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Should be 4 fun games. Upset. You got an upset for us? I mean, Kansas City's only a slight dog. I'm looking really more at Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Houston. You think any of those 3 teams pull off the upset this week?
Tampa Bay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's most likely as well.
I think Kansas City and Buffalo is going to. I don't think that's like considered an upset. I think both of those teams are so very even.
Yeah,
I don't think San Francisco is going to lose to Green Bay, and I think Baltimore is a much better team than Houston. So, like, if I'm looking at like evenly matched upsets, I think Tampa has a chance to. I mean, they just beat Philly.
Yeah. I don't.
Listen, it wasn't hard down the stretch. Philly just, Philly struggled down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that team just completely fell apart. They looked like they did not even care. Like nobody was like the secondary tackling was just atrocious. Like, man, they had definitely mailed it in.
Yeah. So, All right, well, we're going to get out of here. Did you say who you thought your upset was going to be?
It would be Tampa Bay for me too.
Yeah, we're going to get out of here. I hope everyone has a fantastic divisional round. Back normally scheduled on Friday for some basketball. Have a great one, everyone. We'll see you again next week.